Coming up on today's show, the Kia Niro EV hits the Kia US website. More details on the Hyundai Kona EV heading to the UK, which we'll recap on from Friday's show, and how BMW signing a $1 billion contract for batteries. But first of all, good morning, good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Hello and welcome to the Sunday, the 1st of July edition, pinch punch and all that, of EV News Daily. It's Martyn Lee here with the news you need to know about electric cars and the move towards sustainable transport. Well, there we go. It's the end of the month. Q2 is done. The story that has been intensifying over the last few weeks and particularly days: can Tesla make 5,000 Model 3s per week? And we're asking that question because it's a self-imposed deadline that Elon himself put at one of the shareholder calls. This has been something that if they miss, it's because they said they would hit it. So that's where the 5,000 numbers come from, by the way. If you've sometimes wondered, why is the number 5,000? Well, it was a self-imposed deadline from Tesla, meant to be done by the end of last year, and they said it would be done by the end of, well, as of yesterday, the end of the month, end of June. So now it's all over. You'd think we can all take a deep breath and relax. I've seen in the last few days just the partisan support of whether you are behind the mission of Tesla and generally electric cars, or whether you are against them. It is an incredible love or hate relationship either way. I've seen some really bitter exchanges on Twitter, on social media, between people who just wouldn't talk that way to each other's faces. And you know what? If you want a company to fail, just let them get on with it and go, you know what, I don't believe in their business model. I think Tesla's going to fail. We'll wait and see. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But it just seems the last couple of days that they've really notched up another level of, the pro-Tesla people just totally going mad for them, and the anti-Tesla people just writing really horrible articles, personal attacks on even people in the EV community who write about EVs, and doing everything they can to win, as it were, win the argument. Maybe we could just all take a breath. Maybe we could all have a weekend of just not hating each other. Well, Wall Street analysts don't think Tesla will have reached the goal of 5,000 Model 3s per week by the end of June, according to Bloomberg, who surveyed 8 analysts. And we all know analysts are always right. Since 2017, Tesla has been pushing back that 5,000 a week Model 3 production rate. The latest deadline was yesterday, according to an article by oilprice.com published on Friday. Well, in early June, Elon Musk told the annual shareholders meeting it was quite likely, and that was the quote, quite likely, Tesla could be building 5,000 Model 3s per week by the end of the month. Tesla expected to report production and delivery figures before the 4th of July holiday. No guarantee about that, but that's the wide expectation. Well, Wall Street analysts and a Tesla Model 3 production tracker by Bloomberg don't see 5,000 per week happening. As of Thursday earlier this week, the Bloomberg tracker had the forecast for 4,500 vehicles. However, the tracker isn't really set up to respond to short-term sudden changes in either direction, really, increases or decreases for the Model 3. So when they had those factory shutdowns to install new equipment, new lines, those kind of things, not so much at Giga, but at Fremont, it didn't initially reflect that. So there's a bit of a lag on the Bloomberg tracker. Also, experimental, but we'll come to that in a moment. Tom Randall at Bloomberg has been looking back at Model 3, and he says the factory was shut down at least twice for extensive upgrades. A new production line was hastily erected in a tent in the parking lot. And again, another example of how one thing, whether a whole new General Assembly, GA4, was built in 2 weeks inside. It's more than a tent, but you see why they call it a tent. Anyway, you can either spin that as it was a last-minute, last-ditch panic attempt, or, wow, what an incredible achievement, they built a whole new assembly line. in a couple of weeks. Chief Exec CEO Elon Musk has been sleeping on the couch, and now he's been sleeping under the desk. He was even seen personally torquing bolts on an assembly line, helping out a summer intern. Well, Tesla may be suppressing the US sales for the quarter to extend its federal EV tax credit, which is $7,500 per car. The subsidy begins to phase out once one full quarter after the quarter in which Tesla sells its 200,000th electric car in the USA happens, by hitting that milestone from today onwards, July the 1st onwards, rather than yesterday. By doing that, by holding back cars, Tesla will gain 3 more months of tax credits for its customers, which could be worth $400 million to all of those Tesla customers. And Douglas A. Mcintyre at 24/7 Wall Street is talking about how Elon Musk is going to make an unusually convincing argument if the number is below 5,000 a week. Many investors and much of the media believe that he is a shady used car salesman, according to Douglas. He says it's going to make it hard if the figure is 4,999 or less, even if it's 4,999. He thinks that the media will give Tesla a hard time. Meanwhile, Tesla is officially letting every Model 3 reservation holder place their actual order now. While the initial reservation was a $1,000 deposit, the next step is a $2,500 fee to place the order for their Model 3. That's according to the Talk Report. Once a reservation holder places their order, Tesla estimates their specific Model 3 could be 2 to 4 months that you get your car, although that estimate will change according to the options chosen, while that performance package and things like that with higher margins are being prioritised at the moment. And even then, another thing, I've seen a whole bunch of stories saying, amazing, opening it up to all the reservation holders, it'll give Tesla a really good idea of the kind of cars they're going to be making, who wants the performance ones, who wants just the, the basic model. Equally, a bunch of articles going, it's obvious Tesla's out of cash. They're doing this. It's a Ponzi scheme. The way Ponzi schemes work is we need more money and you can have this and you just give us some more money and then you'll get more money back and, then you'll get your car. I give up sometimes. Let's move on to something that's not Tesla and not having people fighting and punching each other online. And let's move on to Hyundai and Kia. Let's go to South Korea and the sister companies. Kia being owned by Hyundai Motor Company. Kia Motors USA just added the all-new Kia Niro EV to the homepage of their USA main site in a prominent position as the first thing you see. And it was the first thing I saw because I happen to run a US VPN. If I do that now, it's going to take me through to the next page. On here, I can put my email address in to get some updates and be regularly updated on progress of the Kia Niro EV. And it also says this: meet the all-electric crossover that has it all. The future has arrived and it's fully electric. The all-new 2019 Kia Niro EV has debuted, expanding upon the Niro model family of hybrid crossovers, and is set to arrive in the US at the end of 2018. Highly anticipated EV has an electric motor to provide 201 horsepower and a liquid-cooled state-of-the-art battery. Kia, it says on the website here, targeting 240 miles of range. Now, cool, this is the US site, so this is talking EPA range, which is just about the most accurate we ever see. So 240 mile range from the 64 kilowatt hour battery, I think is about right. Let's move on to talking about the Hyundai Kona in a moment. They're talking 300 miles on WLTP, because why wouldn't you? If you are selling the car in a country or a region, like here in Europe, WLTP is the new standard, and it says 300, well, then you'd say 300 miles. You take the other stance that actually you should be telling your customers the realistic mileage, but if you are legally required to say what it does, well, in Europe, say that it does 300 miles, and in America, say that it does 240 miles, because according to those regulators or the people measuring it, it does. Well, one more thing coming from J.R. Choco at the Talk Report, although it hasn't had its full US debut, is going to be on the market by the end of 2018, and he says that it's going to go head-to-head with the Chevy Bolt. The bigger issue, though, is quantity. there won't be many. Limited quantities when it arrives, according to the website. Expected availability in selected markets in limited quantity. So it's going to be those markets like California to begin with, and even then, good luck. If it's anything like the Hyundai Kona, which is only going to be sold in the larger battery format, maybe the Kia Niro EV, again, will only come with a 64 kilowatt-hour battery. The website Talk Report says the issues down to battery supplies. Hyundai have had supply issues with the Ioniq Electric, and it's getting worse with the Kona Electric as well. End quote on that article. I would point out, by the way, that the Hyundai Kona, as far as we know, the EV is using LG Chem cells, and the Kia Niro using them from SK Innovation. So, different suppliers, different battery contracts, even different cell chemistries on those. So, you can't really say just because the Hyundai Kona is going to be limited on batteries, therefore, so will the Kia Niro EV. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it also doesn't, because it's two entirely separate battery suppliers. Who knows if those battery contracts were done at different times, different prices, different quantities? No one knows that, so we shouldn't assume. On the other side of the Atlantic, meanwhile, over here in the UK, we've got the pricing for the Hyundai Kona a couple of days ago, and just some more details that kind of passed me by on Friday, and the excitement of the pricing being announced. The spec for the base model, and this is the 39 kilowatt-hour base model. It's £25,000 when you add in the government grant free cash that we're given. £25,000 is 33,000 US dollars, 43,000 Canadian dollars, and for that, you say base spec, but you still get a 7-inch screen, digital radio, DAB radio, Apple, Android, sync baked in, rear cameras, parking sensors, climate control, keyless entry. It's all very good for being the base model. I also missed something, by the way, on Friday that I didn't strike me as important until I was thinking about it again. The difference from you can get the premium spec, which is the mid spec, the premium spec in either battery capacity. So premium 39 kilowatt hour to premium 64 kilowatt hour is an extra £3,125. That's 4,100 US dollars or 5,400 Canadian dollars. If you think that you're going to get an extra 25 kilowatt hours for that price, if you just do some really rough division, that is £125 per kilowatt hour extra. Now, at that multiple, and this is crude and probably massively wrong thing to do, but if you do take that, £125 per extra kilowatt hour to go from the small to the larger battery, if you applied that to the whole 64 kilowatt hour batteries, that would bring the price in at 10,500 US dollars or 13,880 Canadian dollars. Again, that's crude, probably massively wrong, probably pricing it in a way, by the way, to try and get you to upgrade, but that's kind of pretty good territory. £8,000 for a 64 kilowatt hour battery. When I say it's good, actually you can pick the ICE version of the Kona up for about £15,000. Well, add 8,000 to that for the battery and then take off a bit because you haven't got to build a combustion engine. And there is a bit of a premium going on here with the EV. The EVs are still attracting a premium price, and especially on those finance deals as well. They're not making it easy for you. Again, these are all crude maths, and I'm probably massively wrong. By the way, the other thing as well is that the Hyundai Kona SUV here in the UK is going to be available online only from the 2nd of August. Now, many people I know who listen to this podcast, because they've contacted me, and we'll get onto one of those at the end of the show in the community section, have been giving Hyundai dealers here in the UK deposit money for when it's released, so they can be first in line. And the dealers, I gather, received an email late this week actually, it's still Sunday today, with the news it's online only, and that's a little embarrassing to have to be giving money back. Well, moving on, and an array of Tesla power packs, the industrial-sized batteries that are helping to power a Hawaiian island and even part of Australia, may soon be plugging into the Pacific Gas and Electric Company, a substation in Moss Landing, Monterey County, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. PG&E, 2 days ago on Friday, asked the state regulator to approve 4 contracts for using big batteries to help support the electric grid in locations, one of them being the Moss Landing location, designed and built by Palo Alto's Tesla, while PG&E would own it and they'd operate it. It's going to have a capacity of 182.5 megawatts. And finally, on to BMW. Last but certainly not least, Mark Kane at Inside EVs has been reporting on a $1 billion deal for batteries. BMW has awarded the Chinese maker CATL a contract over €1 billion worth. That's 1.16 billion US dollars. CATL also looking for potential locations to start building batteries here in Europe. The German state of Thuringia encouraging the Chinese manufacturer to use a site in eastern Germany. Now, CATL recently raised more than $850 million in its IPO and became an investor in Byton. The plan for the future is to build a 24 gigawatt-hour battery factory, which will more or less double its current output. Read Mark's article on Inside EVs for a lot more. Interesting news today, and interesting to get onto your comments and the things you've been saying as well. Let's talk about those Hyundai Kona deposits that have been placed in the UK. One of those guys who I've been chatting to, he's a listener to the podcast, and his name is Glenn, by the way. And Glenn Mason told me that his local Hyundai dealership wasn't told about the Kona information, the date that it was coming, and also being online only. He says, based on my experience, my dealer knew nothing about it, especially the whole online ordering process. It put them in a difficult position since it guaranteed an order for those who placed a deposit, whether that was the right or the wrong thing to do. Some people have had their deposits returned. My dealership, says Glenn, is going to speak to head office and get more info a month to go to try and clarify the situation. A little recommendation now for another YouTube channel you can catch up with over the weekend. If you want to watch some more things on YouTube, go check out the YouTube channel of one of the podcast listeners. He goes by the name of The Plug Seeker, and he's very, very active in the UK EV community, always reporting on different charge locations and all the details, and putting those details online, or pictures and stuff like that, and updating those online databases, doing a sterling job for the rest of the EV community. Now making videos on YouTube. Top work, my friend. 8 of them done so far, reviewing different rapid chargers. Go check them out. Just like I say, search YouTube for The Plug Seeker. Always fascinating when someone starts making content and putting things out there into the world. And well done, sir. Well done. You keep going because they're just brilliant, brilliant videos from someone who really knows what they're talking about. Final little bit of news. One of the emails I got earlier this week was from Mark. Now, Mark Hoyle was chatting to me about the new Hyundai Kona, and he says with its big battery pack, even if it's 200 plus miles, whether it's 240, 250, 300, even if on a terrible wet and windy day and it's raining, it does 200 miles, you're still getting half the cost of a Tesla, and that is enough to make it a hit. He's worried about demand, though. He says, by the way, P.S., it was hard to find your email address, apart from hearing it on the podcast. You don't put it online. So a little while ago, I just went on and, hey, I'm no web expert, but I can work out my WordPress blog. And so I've put the email address on there and a new contact page. And I've put it on the YouTube channel as well. So if you ever want to get hold of us, it should be easy to find. Good suggestion. Yeah, I've done exactly what you suggested. By the way, you can email hello@evnewsdaily.com. That's hello@evnewsdaily.com. If you want to comment on today's episode or any of the previous 166, including yesterday's interview with myev.com and Dimitri, if you haven't heard it yet, what are you waiting for? Go and download yesterday's from iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, TuneIn, Stitcher, and the blog evnewsdaily.com. You can subscribe at any of those places. You get them first and free and automatically. And if you can leave me a little review in return for getting this podcast for free and doing all the work that I do every day, a little review, a little star rating, whatever you think it's worth, would be massively appreciated in return. If you want to catch up on the socials, do search EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.